you too.
Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the weekly show of Classroom Without Walls, episode 126. And on this show, I interview leading social media marketers, entrepreneurs, business owners, and to come here to share with us their best strategies and best practices so that we can future-proof our business. And today we have the one only Carrie Bohlig join us live to share her journey, incredible journey from a preschool teacher to generating millions in revenue. I just love the story. And for those of you who don't know who is this amazing woman that I love, respect, and look up to, and Carrie is a business strategist, and she is an international keynote speaker, and she's also the co-owner of Tandem Consulting. And by the way, I have your husband on the show, and we had a great conversation. And today we're talking about Carrie's journey from a preschooler to generating millions in revenue, and what we can learn from her transformation. And we're also going to discuss side hustles and how you can scale side hustles. Sorry, my cat. I just want to make sure she won't shut the door. And how you can scale your side hustles, and what are some common mistakes that side hustlers make, and the differences between employee mentality versus business owner mentality, and so much more. So I'm really excited. And Carrie, welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this dialogue with you for weeks now, so I appreciate the invite.
Likewise, and I see our friend Liz in Australia is live with us. And we are live on LinkedIn, on Periscope, Twitter, and YouTube, and Facebook. My dear friend Peter is live commenting, and in the comment section, if you have any question, feel free to tag him if I missed your question. So are you ready to get started, Carrie?
Yes, let's do this.
Yeah, so excited. I really want to start our conversation by learning more about your incredible transformation and transition. So you started your career as a preschool teacher, which is kind of my career, and also started as a teacher. So how did you transition from being a teacher to where you are today, you know, a very successful entrepreneur, speaker, generating millions in revenue? And so share that story with us.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you asking. And it is always fun to reflect on the journey because it's been a progression.
I'm sure.
A lot of my growth has been very incremental. I did not build a business full time from the ground up. I actually started more with a side hustle approach, as you mentioned. So I was in undergrad. I studied sociology and women's studies. So I have very liberal studies backgrounds. And really the reality of graduating, getting a job, and just realizing very quickly that being in education, my finances were not going to support the dream.
That's why I left.
Yeah, it's a gut check. And every job I ever had was with children, and I never got paid well. And I enjoyed it. I was passionate about it, but it really undercut a lot of my bigger vision and the things that I wanted to do on a larger scale. So I said, what the heck? I'm going to keep my job. I'll get the job in teaching, but then just slowly leverage evenings and weekends to incrementally build something out and also develop me, because I hardly had a resume at that point, let alone business experience. So I wasn't extreme. I took more of a moderate approach, I would say, to entrepreneurship, but then compounded over a handful of years' time, I was actually able to make that conversion, especially with mentorship and coaches' help, to facilitate transitioning out of my job altogether. My part-time businesses were making me more than my full-time career, which as a teacher was not hard to replace, but it was a really big victory to be able to get to that space and then just say, hey, I have 40 more hours in my week. Let me go pursue things I'm passionate about, as well as reinvest into other people and really coach other folks on how to scale a side hustle effectively, like we've been able to do. So, and now we've started other businesses. We started a nonprofit. We're writing a book. So it's just led to a neat lifestyle where we've really been able to customize our choices and really reach a lot of the larger vision that we were hopeful for in our early 20s when we started developing good habits and accessing coaches.
Wow, I have so many questions to ask you based on what you shared. I feel like there's so much that we can unpack. So first, I'm really curious because you mentioned, your like liberal arts background, women's study have nothing whatsoever to do with business. So like what kind of inspired you to even like invest in coaches and thinking about developing side hustles? I mean, like I didn't start working on my side hustles until I was like, midway into my 30s. And so I'm just curious, what is it about your life that really inspired you to start those like side hustles and even investing in coaches and mentors?
Yeah, well, I realized pretty young that everything is a skill set, right? So even though I didn't have a ton of practical business experience, I'd had success in other arenas, just like you, of course. My success was mainly in athletics. So I knew, hey, I actually do have some transferable skills that I can bring to the table, especially with an effective coach helping me. And I would also say the inner drive was just the harsh reality that if I really was in touch with my deeper goals, that I wasn't going to have those fulfilled by one career path. And so a lot of times when we talk about a side hustle, people often think about diversifying their income, which is super, super important, and I highly recommend it. But how about also diversifying your skill sets?
I love that.
Because maybe you're a nurse. Your nursing skills are very confined to the healthcare space. Maybe you work as a professor, right? Or an educator like you and I did, or in sales. There's all sorts of great skills and development, but it is fairly industry specific. And I got excited about really expanding that bubble and just like maximizing a lot more of my potential in the process. So.
Oh, I love that. And if you remember, what are some of the very first side hustles that you engaged? Do you mind sharing with us?
Yeah. So one of my first side hustles was in the e-commerce space. So I had to find something that was low risk and low cost because I didn't have a lot of income. So there's a lot of different side hustles people can pick up. I mean, the list is endless. Most people don't need ideas. It's just finding practical ways that they can really get in the game. Because what we see is a lot of people talk a very big game. They've got this cool new app or this really amazing product, this novel idea. But then it's not based in reality or practicality or efficiency or effectiveness. And they really struggle to actually start and scale and build something. So I just tell people keep it realistic, most importantly. And it kind of gets into the topic of, do you have to be passionate about your side hustle? It's kind of up in the air. I think some people feel, oh, I really have to be passionate. And I really respect that. I think that's awesome. For us, we weren't necessarily passionate about e-commerce per se, but what we were passionate about was what it could create for us in terms of lifestyle and the person that we would have to become to really create success in those environments. So I think kind of figuring out where you stand on that spectrum, because we said, hey, let's just do something effective and efficient, and then we can segue to more of those passion projects like we're doing at this point.
Well, I love this. I think, actually one of my questions is, I know quite a few people nowadays who have side hustles, but very few of them are actually very successful at scaling their side hustles. I think one common mistake is that we think this has to be, when we start a business, it has to be like changing the universe, right? Have something really, really big. But from what I heard from you, it's like, no, you don't have to. You have to be kind of down to earth, start with something that can be scaled, even if you are not really passionate about this. I love this. I love this. Yeah. And it reminds me, and just listening to you, sharing this, and I have something that I want to share on my screen. I have just shared with my own students, which is, I don't know, Carrie, if you know this, called Ikigai or Ikigai.
No,
yeah.
Very cool.
So what they talk about is a very popular Japanese concept, sharing like how people have like fulfilling lives, like feeling happy. So they talk about, just doing what you love is not enough, right? And what you love, what you are good at the same time, people are going to pay for this. And also this is something that everyone needs. So the sweet spot is something that we want to devote our life to. So like your story just reminds me of that. So I kind of want to share. Really, really powerful.
That's a very fancy Venn diagram. And it definitely visually hits on that deeper question of what will people pay you to do? And I think that was a big part of that, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think that is even Mark Schaefer in his book, How to Become Known, he was talking about this, right? Many people pursue their passion. I think that's kind of how I got started on this journey. But then quickly I realized, oh my God, people are not interested in paying for this. Why do I waste my time? So I love that. So what do you think are some other kind of mistakes that side hustlers make besides, I need to choose something really big, my passion? So what are some other mistakes?
I have a lot I can share on this. First,
bring them on.
I'm going to bring it. First and foremost, very naive and sometimes foolish goal setting. A lot of people overestimate what they can do in a year or so, but then vastly underestimate what they can do in 5 to 10 years. The other aspect would be assuming that revenue is going to equate to net profit. And I'm very blessed to be married to a financial analyst, someone who's extremely savvy fiscally. So that's helped transfer a lot of thought process to me over the years. We also often see people prematurely spend profit that hasn't actually come in yet. It's not in their bank account yet, but they think the deal's coming through, or they think the big end of your bonus is processing. And so they're prematurely spending money that they haven't necessarily completely earned yet. I would also say underinvesting, especially if someone has more of an employee background, like really shifting the thinking on investing is hard for people. And we often have to continue to fight against that tendency to want to pull back. But we've always been very willing to invest into our businesses. Another one would be over investing in the fancy, fun front end work. Like putting up your website, creating business cards, making your LinkedIn bio. A lot of people think that's building their business. When yes, are some of those things really important? For sure. But some of them are just what makes people feel like a business owner versus just going out and doing the work and building a business. And so people can get really bogged down in some of that fun, flashy, kind of Pinteresty business stuff.
Yeah, like a logo, this and that.
We'll roll up your sleeves and build something. We've never had business cards. We don't use business cards. Sometimes that surprises people, but we never needed a business card to make us feel like business owners. And specific to what we do, we just didn't, quite frankly, need them. So I'm not saying no one should have a business card, but again, we weren't confused about what the actual work to help with the bottom line was going to be for growing our businesses. And we just stayed really true to that. We didn't bounce around. I think that's another mistake people make is sometimes entrepreneurs have that brain where it's like looking for the next shiny best thing. And that can be really tricky. If you actually want to anchor yourself and build something, you have to be up for the mundane, sort of the boring, the non-glamorous work. A lot of what we do is just like pretty routine, basic things. It's not what you see on Instagram per se, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I love, oh my God, all those are really, really great tips. And I can resonate, shiny object. I have been there myself, trying to stay focused, because the thing is that even if you are doing something you love, running a business has so many different aspects. There will be an aspect that you don't particularly enjoy that much, and you just have to, stay with it. Yeah. So here is a great question from Dan. And so thank you for joining us live. So he was interested, for people who are kind of like starting out for the ventures, did you guys start from scratch, or like, outside support? And so for people who are kind of interested in growing and building their side hustles.
Yeah, so we were bootstrapped. And that's why we kept our jobs for a number of years, because our jobs, having good, stable careers and using more of a side hustle approach, helped us create good cash flow to invest into building our side hustle. So when we coach people, it's really important that they have, solid careers in place so that they're not having to take out loans or go find investors. They can just really use some of those resources that they have to, chip away at building their business and make good investments. So there's all different ways to do it. But that's the approach we took because we didn't have a lot of capital and we didn't want the stress of borrowing capital from outside sources either.
Totally. Did you and your husband kind of resign from your full-time jobs at the same time, or you guys phased it?
Yeah, we phased it. So I stepped out pretty early in my 20s. Craig did very well professionally, made a solid 6-figure income, great career. So it took us longer to replace his income. And what we did is a little bit counterculture where we waited till we had fully replaced his income and then some. So I know sometimes side hustlers wait till they've maybe replaced 40%, 60%. We waited until we really fully replaced it so that transition was not stressful. It felt very secure and very stable as we shifted things around, and he became, more of a full-time business owner at that point.
Wow, I love that. It reminds me of, I think this, I forgot his name. It's a really well-known YouTuber. And he shared, for him to grow his channel from zero followers to the first 1 million, it took him, for example, 10 years. And from the first million to the second million, third million took him about 1 year. And so it's really interesting to see really build up momentum. So I'm curious to see your journey, from being a preschooler to kind of scale that very first side hustle. How long did it take? And then slowly, is this kind of the process quicker and you can scale and grow and sell business faster? So how is your journey? Yeah.
No, it's a great question. That exponential factor is so underestimated, right? So it took a handful of years for me to transition, maybe a little bit less than that. But then what was so powerful is that everything we had learned in that process helped us succeed even more quickly in the years after that. So what people think about is, building the foundation is just going to take some time. But then once you have the expertise, the skill sets, the network, the influence, the acumen, then that's where that exponential growth can really start to take off and experience almost more rewards than you think you deserve. I think that in the beginning you work so hard and you're I'm very underpaid, but over time, I think a lot of big business owners feel very overpaid, but that's because they've really been able to make that transition from small business, self-employed to more big business.
Yeah, speaking of which, I love that, there's definitely a journey. When I see other people selling programs, hey, we can teach you, overnight, 6 months, and, I make 6, 8, 7 figures. I'm I don't really believe that. Nobody can create a business like that. Yeah. So I want to ask you, I know you guys are really into mindset. So I want to ask you this question. I recently watched, I don't know if you follow James Whitmore. So he actually did a free training and 8 episodes talking about digital CEO. So in his training, he actually described 4 different types of entrepreneurs. One is, I have it on my notebook, unpaid but overworked intern. The second one is the dead-end job employee. The third one is the modern-day marketer. And the last one is digital CEO, which is a more ideal state, according to him. But you also talked kind of similarly about, mindset, things like that. I wonder if you can explain to us, what are the differences between the employee mentality versus now, as a business owner, as a CEO mentality? And how can we make that shift? I feel like many people are kind of stuck. They think like an employee, even though the intention was to create a business that can give them freedom. Right. But oftentimes the freedom, the job is actually consuming our lives. So share with us the differences between the 2 different types of, employee versus business owner.
Yeah, well, and there's really drastic differences, and I don't believe one is superior to the other. I just think they create different outcomes, right? So it's very important to understand what are what are the ways that I think? What's my deeper scripting? And am I willing to unlearn and really develop new mindset that maybe fits the quadrant or the, outcomes that I want to achieve in life? So for business owners, you create the work. As an employee, you show up to work, they give you what they want you to do. They even give you a stapler and some free pens, right? Like everything is handed to you in a sense, more or less. Versus the work of a business is to go create the work. And so there's just like extra level of discipline and motivation and hustle and really fire that has to be present to some level. And I wouldn't even passion. I don't think it's passion. I think it's just like a deeper drive and a deeper will to win and to be willing to do things that you're maybe actually not that passionate about, like maybe make a cold call or go run a B2B appointment. I mean, those aren't things that got me excited, but I was willing to do some of those things because it was worth it to me in terms of the outcome I could create. The other aspect is we talked about investing, right? In my job as a teacher, I mean, I invested the 40 hours, but I only got paid for those 40 hours. It's not as though they were going to keep paying me if I didn't keep coming. So really having that idea of return on investment and being willing to do more, to do extra, to not necessarily be counting your hours, because when it's your business, if you have a minimums mindset, the joke is kind of on you because you're the boss, right? So it's just that whole shift in thinking that whatever we used in our career paths in business, it looks different. And I challenge people and I ask people, would you want to work for someone else for 60 hours and get paid for 40? Most people would say, heck no. Right? Yeah. But then when it's your own, you might have to do that for quite a while before you necessarily create enough steam or momentum to actually get paid well to do that, right?
Yeah, it's almost like raising babies, right? The first few years, they just like completely rely on you. Now my 8 years old is a lot more independent, so he has been helping us. So like, type of investment. So so here's a question I think from Peter, and so he asked you, how did you outsource at the start, the early stage, compared to now? Actually, I have a similar question. So from side hustle, I'm sure you kind of did everything by yourself. So at which point did you actually invest in a team?
So it really depends on how much you can monetize your hourly rate, right? So we had to think about what are things based off of our income, what are tasks or things that we could outsource to someone else, not as an employee necessarily, but just as a contractor? And how can we get certain things off of our plate that are just physically not worth our time because we are worth more than it would cost to pay somebody else to do it? So that's where just putting those analytics to play are important. Do the math. What makes sense to get off your plate? What makes sense for you to continue to have a hand on? Also, what makes sense for you to get off your plate, but still sort of manage a little bit, because it's very easy when we delegate to either hover completely, and then it sort of defeats the purpose of having someone else do it, or we tend to just be completely hands off. And the person we outsource it to might not really have that same level of investment in the job getting done or the task. So just finding that happy medium of being willing to let go of a little bit of control, which is very difficult for a lot of business owners because it's your baby. So don't mess with the baby. But also knowing that you do have limitations in terms of time and energy, and just finding creative ways that you can actually have people do things that are duplicatable. And we never wanted to be so talented that we couldn't be duplicated, because that's where people get very stuck in hardcore self-employment, right? If you think about a dentist or a good lawyer, I mean, if they want to go to Europe for a year, you're not going to see the dentist technician for your root canal. You'll just go find a different dentist because they're not duplicatable, right? So just figuring out ways that other people can actually do what you do in a sense and do it well.
Yeah, I actually learned my lesson because I was working with a coach and I do lots of teaching. And he asked me, do I have like a guide just in case something happened to me on that day? I couldn't show up. I couldn't deliver my lesson. I was like, I don't have, so now I'm learning, to slowly create like processes and systems in my own business. So one day, if I'm sick, if I can't show up, at least other people know like what are the steps, so they can step in. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So have you ever actually worked with VAs in different countries?
I haven't. No, I haven't. And I know people do. So maybe I should look into it. I don't know.
Yeah, but like I'm just curious because I tried and didn't work really well in my case. So I would love to learn some tips from you, but it seems like you don't have this experience either. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard good things from certain people, other business owners on VAs. I just haven't necessarily taken that step. So
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, like anyone in the live audience, if you have some success with like VAs in different countries, so definitely do let us know. Yeah. So here's another question from one of our live audience. And so how do you determine and test viable idea, looking for an example or user case? Actually, that's kind of one of my questions. With COVID, I was actually doing some research just in the United States. Almost like 14 million Americans lost their jobs. So can you imagine the number on a global scale? I can't. So like, where should we even get started for those people who lost their jobs, but they have a family, they have bills to pay. So how do they even validate their ideas, to have some side hustles? So yeah, give us some tips and some ideas.
yeah, well, that's the really sad part. The really hard part right now is just knowing how many people are hurting in that way, and in so many ways losing hope because of maybe job loss and all those things. So a couple things that I would share is, number one, don't let it hurt your self-image. Losing a job can be a huge self-image dip, right? So doing things that continue to grow you, help grow your confidence, like reading books, doing good networking, getting around other people who are upward mobile and who are instilling a lot of belief and faith in you, can go a long way at that time. The other aspect, and like you shared, is just building more of a side hustle, not necessarily doing anything super extreme or high risk, but finding something that is scalable, that you can progressively build, that you don't have to put a ton of money into, but you can put sweat equity into.
I love that term. Yeah.
Yep. So for me, I didn't invest a ton of capital into my first couple businesses. I invested a lot of sweat equity because I had time. I was 22. I had a fair amount of time on my hands. And so, maybe you don't work a 40-hour job right now. If you got let go, you've got some time. Go put it to work in your favor and learn how to invest it into something that can be built into something bigger versus just spending it. If you think about driving Uber, I mean, maybe that's something someone needs to do to create a little bit of monetary gain to invest, but that shouldn't fool you into thinking you're building something that you're going to scale over time, right? Because that's very one-to-one.
Yeah.
Ways that you can actually more exponentially grow. And the other thing would be, do some testing. I think someone's question is like, how do you test a viable idea? Maybe you want to start a restaurant. That's your life dream. Maybe start with a small food cart. A lot of people think I have to go all in or not at all, but like maybe do some catering, figuring out, do you even enjoy the food industry? Like take one step into the industry and play around with it a little bit and just see if it is actually viable from some of your short-term experience. Ask other leaders in the industry. I'm a huge promoter of find people who are 5 to 10 years beyond where you are and tap into what the heck they did. What was their mindset? What were the mistakes that they made that they recommend you not make? How can you actually leverage other people's journey to expedite your own success journey and sidestep a lot of the things that they messed up? And so those would be a few of my first few tips.
Yeah, kind of like what you mentioned earlier, investing in like coaches and mentors. I feel like even if you don't have the capital to invest in one, you can easily start a podcast, which is free, right? You can just start a live streaming show, and then you can slowly build your audience and interview those people that you would love to network with and have a conversation like what we're doing right now. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and just be willing to ask for what you need. And I think that's not always easy. especially if somebody feels like they're in a little bit of a slump. But if you don't ask, you will not receive. And so really being willing to go for it and be bold in your pursuit, not necessarily with like investing hundreds of thousands of dollars, but just being bold and getting the support you need and being able to do good work.
Yeah, yeah. And I love this. It's so good. Yeah. So I know that you are really like passionate about, like investing in coaches and, personal development. So share with us why it is so important to invest in ourselves in order to kind of grow our business, and kind of share with us how has working with coaches and mentors really helped you? And you are so successful today. Are you still working with coaches and mentors? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, so for us, we've really always viewed personal development as the heartbeat of entrepreneurship. And if we're always growing as people and we stay green and fresh on the journey, we know that we'll always be growing. So I think having that growth mindset is incredibly important. And then I think coaches naturally bring that out of people if you find a really good qualified coach. And so that's one thing to consider, is just as you're assessing, who do I want to work with? Because there are a lot of coaches and some are amazing, some are actually not that experienced. So just figuring out, hey, are they certified or are they qualified, right? Because those are kind of two different things. Just because someone gets a certification in something doesn't necessarily mean they've grown a huge business necessarily. So just be willing to ask some questions and make sure that you find someone that's actually a good match. And what we always share with people is find somebody who actually has what you want. They've created the actual results that you want in your life, because then it can be a very streamlined process in terms of their knowledge transfer to you. And if you can get them a little bit invested in your journey, that's even better, because that means that they have a little skin in the game for you to perform and for you to succeed and for you to do well, versus just having a cup of coffee with someone once every 6 months and calling it membership, right?
Yeah. So what are some ways that like you guys invest in yourself besides, did you take like courses, invest in like mentors, go to retreats? So give us some examples.
Yeah. So I mean, different book programs, different podcasts, just putting a lot in here very intentionally. Otherwise, a lot of what we get is not going to help us on our journey if we sort of are casual about what's going into our brain, right? So we were really deliberate about the books we were reading and the training and education that we were getting. Attending conferences, figuring out, hey, what are conferences in my industry that are relevant and that maybe other people actually vouch for and recommend, because conferences can be really expensive. So making sure you're going to ones that you're going to get your money's worth. And that's where a mentor can be really helpful, because if they know your industry well, they can say, yeah, maybe actually skip that conference, but here's 3 books that will cost you, $50 versus $2, right? It's just sometimes these like small customizations that go so far. And a lot of people think, oh, I just need more content. I need more content. You actually might not need any more content. You might need more customization on your journey.
Amen. I so agree. And I work with students, and people think that it is information that are going to help me transform. It is not information. It is actually application. As they go through the application, people need more customization, hand-holding, mentoring, and coaching. It's definitely not. I think we have way too much information. Yeah.
You do. And it can be very confusing and actually paralyzing for people if you are too information driven, right? And so I always share with people the value of experiential learning. Please read some books, of course, but your primary driver of actually skill development is going to be through being out in the field and doing the work firsthand and really learning through failing. And that's not easy for people, especially if they've been scripted their whole life to not make mistakes and not get fired and not mess things up, right? And so just accepting that, like, messing some things up, even like you said, like you maybe made a few mistakes early on, but that's how you
feel. It doesn't help. Yeah.
We can't count our mistakes anymore. And we feel like we've been successful because we've been willing to make more mistakes than most people. So.
Yeah, and also like learn from those mistakes, right? And then reflect on those mistakes. Yeah, I want to ask you, you are really active on LinkedIn. So like, it is that something kind of you have been like intentionally to cultivate, building a very active presence on LinkedIn, developing a network, like developing meeting mentors and coaches. So like, what inspired you to be on LinkedIn, and how has being so active on this platform really helped you like grow as a person and your businesses? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So we did not actively use social media for the first 14 years of building our businesses.
What?
Believe it or not, I know. I'm not sure if I should be embarrassed or proud of that. But no, we didn't use social media. Yeah. So in the last year, 18 months, we just said, hey, there's a huge opportunity on social media. We chose an environment that we felt like had just really good, supportive people, a good community, high caliber people. So we said, hey, let's go with LinkedIn. It's very professional, but it's a great space to be able to transfer a lot of thought process and get to know a lot of other great professionals and business owners. So I would say you don't need to be on every single social media platform. We chose a couple, and we've really anchored ourselves in those environments and really built community. And so one of the other fumbles that I see people make as business owners is being very transactional versus relational. And so I jumped on LinkedIn. My goal was, hey, how do I create a good presence, have people learn what I'm about, understand who we are and our values and vision, and really broadcast that so the right people could find us. And what we found is through that we also were able to build a lot of really amazing relationships. And so has there been net profit and revenue created through being on LinkedIn? Absolutely. But it's also created like just as many intangible benefits with relationships and other really neat opportunities that I really wouldn't have guessed, but kind of come with just good networking and having good etiquette and a good heart and good intentions when you're on a platform with amazing people. So I've been nothing but impressed. I've loved my experience. I got on there and I said, hey, I'm going to post a few videos every week consistently for a year. And I did that. And I would say that's—
Yeah, I saw that. Congratulations, 1 year anniversary, right?
The 1 year anniversary. Yeah. And I did not want to do it. I mean, I didn't even want to make my LinkedIn profile public. That's how I was just like, we've had all the success like in our private little bubble. I kind of just want to keep it that way. And finally I was like, no, I need to go for it. And I made my profile public and started putting out content and haven't really looked back. So it's been a very rewarding journey.
So you are kind of actually, this show has been like quite 100 plus episodes. I feel like you are the first person who didn't start the social media journey, but build quite a few successful businesses. I'm really curious. So before social media, like how did people discover you?
Before social media, how did people even do it? I know. In-person, old school networking, a lot of hand-to-hand meeting people, connecting. I mean, I guess the same way people have always done it before the internet, but I mean, we just sort of didn't see the bigger opportunity with social media. So, I mean, I would have liked to have jumped on prior to last year, 18 months ago, but we were doing fine with our businesses. So we didn't really have that sense of urgency yet. But I was glad that we, again, had that green mentality and were open to change and trying new things, and also just being a little bit like new at something again is kind of exciting and fun in a lot of different ways. And there's really a lot of business owners out there that are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s where they're like, I don't really want to change. That'd be a lot of work to learn about social media. I'm not going to do it. And I just urge you to stay really green. And I mean, potentially outsource some of that. Maybe you don't need to be the pioneer figuring out social media, but at least be open to it because it is a huge opportunity.
Totally. But on the other hand, I have personally met enough people who are actually on LinkedIn, but they don't have a business. And I also see the other end, I think you guys are doing really well. So you have only been on LinkedIn for like less than 2 years. Oh, wow. Really incredible. So how is this online network? How do you amplify? How do you use the online network kind of amplify your own business? Like what's the connection between your like this online new space and this kind of the traditional face-to-face space that you guys have been nurturing over the last several decades? Like, are they kind of parallel, or like what's the relationship? I'm curious.
I think it's integrated in so many ways, just because a lot of our previous network is on social media, right? But I think what's so powerful about social is it just really broadens your reach. And that there's something very special about that. I mean, there's people, for anyone listening, there's people who need your services, they need your mindset, they need your product, but they're in the middle of nowhere, Utah. And unless you're on social media sharing about who you are and how you solve their problems, potentially, it's going to be pretty tricky for them to find you and access you, right?
Yeah. Was it hard for you? Like, was there a particular specific trigger that pushed you to be on LinkedIn and you embrace the video, or just like one day you woke up, yeah, I'm going to do this, and started using video? Like, I'm interested in the backstory.
Yeah, it was something that I just thought about for a really long time. For many months, and I just was too uncomfortable to do it. Again, I didn't want to be so public. But then it just got to the point, I went to an in-person LinkedIn training where we live, and the speaker, who's become a great friend of mine, Chantel Sumas, she just talked about vulnerability. And after the training, I got in my car, pulled out my camera, shot a video. It sucked, so I didn't use that one. But then I drove home, went in my backyard, shot another video and another one and many takes. And finally, I got a reasonable enough video. I posted it on social media, and that was my first video. And it was kind of like I flipped the switch at that point and just said, like, enough is enough. I just need to do this. I'm wasting so much time fretting and like thinking about this. And that's not really my temperament. Like, as a business owner, I'm a very decisive person. I'm quick to act. So I think I just got frustrated enough where I said, the heck with this. I'm just going to actually do it. And what's so powerful is that once you start to really experience some of those intangible benefits of putting yourself out there, it really sort of multiplies that momentum. And if you run with that momentum and don't slow down, I think that's what really can propel people in a very special way.
Yeah, it definitely gets easier and easier. But the key is like that very first, how we kind of transform from our comfort zone, fear zone, and learning zone, and eventually to grow and hopefully to master this. Yeah. Well, really powerful. I didn't know that, because you are such a natural when it comes to video, and I didn't know this backstory. So really interested in hearing that story. Yeah.
Well, and you've been public speakers, so I can't say that I'm not used to talking to people, but with one-on-one with a camera, that's a very different skill set. So I think that's what was more intimidating than anything. Not a lack of things to say, but just like actually doing it, right?
Yeah. And so far, I think we're all very impressed by you guys. And you have quite a few businesses, 2 young children, and you guys are also starting a nonprofit. And I just learned working on a book. So like, I want you to definitely share with us what the book is about, and also like, how do you stay productive and how do you stay motivated? What are some like tips for like entrepreneurs, and especially right now, everyone is kind of working from home, their work life, everything's like really blurred. So give us some like productivity tips that you use.
Yeah, so I think what's hard initially is motivating ourselves to do the work, right? But once we sort of hit our stride, we create some growth, maybe you create some customers, or you create some sort of team, or you start to bring on some employees, it's easy to be motivated when the light shifts onto other people that you're helping, right? So I recommend for people, just fight really hard, be extra disciplined until you get to that point, and then it's mainly about serving other people, which is actually quite easy for me. When there's an opportunity to help somebody else, I'm very rallied around that. I'm extra accountable. It's when it's just about me and my own accountability, I think that's where people get very tripped up. So just finding that inner will and that deeper drive to stay consistent and steady. And if it means putting some accountability systems in your life, go for it. I believe that people need accountability much more than they want it.
Totally. I mean, all the classes I purchased online that are pre-recorded videos, I didn't finish any. because there was nobody holding me like, hey, are you actually doing the work, watching the video, even though I paid? Exactly. Nobody was doing that. So I still agree. You need someone like that. Yeah. I mean, even my show, if this show were not public, yeah. I think I probably would give up a long time ago. Yes, totally. Because now it's like public. I have to like show up. Yeah, so I love that. So share with us, what's the book about? I didn't know that you guys are writing a book.
Yeah, so we're writing a book about mindset and life set on building a side hustle. So it's not necessarily a book about ideas per se, but it's about mindset and really getting your life and your foundation straight so that you can actually really use entrepreneurship as a tool to create a great life, not just create income.
Wow, I love that. So when are you halfway through the book or just getting started on the book?
Well, we finished the manuscript. So now it will go to our publisher and now, back and forth with the editing. So I think in early 2021, the book should be out. So we'll keep it.
Perfect timing. Yeah, then come back on the show and talk about the book. Yeah, very interesting. Actually, I wanted to ask you, because many people I know are kind of full-time entrepreneurs and part-time parents, or some of them wish they never had kids so they can hustle all the time, right? We hear that all the time. So like, how is your life like being part-time entrepreneurs and full-time like parents? Do you have like, how's your day? I'm just so curious. I don't know, I don't think you have a typical day. So maybe share your today's, how's the day for you look like today?
Well, it's neat because we've created a lot of fluidity within all our roles, right? So I can be on a conference call or, doing a live like this, and 5 minutes later playing on the carpet with my, almost 3-year-old child. So it's nice because things really can go back and forth with a lot of ease. So it's a big blessing. That was really the vision, is how do we create those types of lifestyle choices? We're not super into big flashy monetary things, but just how do we have control of our time in a day and can really invest those hours into the people that we love the most, right? As well as those passion projects. It's not always easy though, because it's not black or white. It's not like there's a set schedule every day or that every day is the same. Every day is a little bit different. And so sometimes that brings on its own level of chaos, but at the same time, we're choosing that. And that's sort of like part of the lifestyle that we've onboarded. And it's a really neat opportunity to work alongside my spouse, my husband, and build multiple businesses and do all these neat things together and co-parent. So we've appreciated all the blessings that have come with being able to be where we're at in life.
I really love that. It reminds me of recently I watched an interview Seth Godin did with Inc. magazine. And in that interview, he said that, people love surfing because every wave is different. And that's why people love it, in real life, talking about entrepreneurship, because every day is different and every challenge is very different. That's why we kind of, people like us, do things like this. We love it. Yeah. So I can resonate. Yeah.
That's a cool analogy. I am not a surfer, but that does make sense. It resonates.
I'm not a surfer either, but yeah, also makes sense to me. Yeah. Yeah. So great. Yeah. So share with us, where can people I have been sharing your LinkedIn and website. And so share with us again, where can people learn more about you? And so is LinkedIn the best place to get a hold of you?
That's where I hang out the most. So that would be an awesome space for people to find me. And we're just big believers, if we can either formally or informally help people, that's always our goal, is just how to be a good steward for other people, and always love to build relationships with great people too. So would love to connect.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so this is the website, and if you guys, check out the website and join their list. And I am so excited. Now I know you have a book and co-author, you and your husband, right?
Yes, totally. Yeah. Yep. That was an adventure in itself. It was pretty fun to write. So
yeah, I can't wait to check out the book. Thank you so much. Yeah. So just a quick announcement for next week. And so we have Elaine. I have so many windows. Yes. So Elaine is actually coming in the show to talk about, she specializes in one person, kind of this trend of one person $1 million business. And she is a senior contributor to Forbes. So we're going to talk about this trend, kind of nice way to follow up on side hustles, how people start a side hustle, one-person $1 million business side hustle. So really excited. So definitely join us live next Wednesday, same time if you're interested. And so make sure, again, to follow Carrie on LinkedIn. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us live. And thank you again, Carrie, for incredible interview. And I can't wait to watch the replay myself and take more notes. So
yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was such a great conversation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Bye, everyone.